The house smelled of silence and cold coffee. His hands, old and empty, did not remember how to hug without it hurting. He had lost everything he loved, or so he thought. Until one afternoon, in a restaurant where he should never have been, a woman in an apron trembled while serving him water, and her eyes, God, those eyes he knew from another life. And behind her, in a wrinkled photograph, a 4-year-old girl with leukemia looked at him with the same eyes he saw in the mirror every morning. His daughter. A daughter he never knew existed, and she was dying. Like this if it touched your soul. It's not just a click, it's a silent hug between those of us who know what it is to lose. Comment how you think this story is going to end. And if you haven't subscribed yet, it costs you nothing, but for us it means the whole world. Thank you for being here. The restaurant Villarreal smelled of olive oil, roasted garlic, and red wine. The tables were so close that the elbows of the diners touched, and the murmur of conversations mixed with the distant strumming of a Spanish guitar. The yellowish lamps hung from the ceiling like old, tired moons, lighting up cracked tiles that told stories from another century. Jack Miller entered with the posture of someone who does not need to ask permission to exist. At 52 years old, a billionaire in the medical sector, he wore an Italian suit that cost more than the monthly salary of all the employees at Villarreal combined. His partners followed him with nervous smiles, and behind them came the Japanese client, Mr. Tanaka, with that perfect politeness that only years of corporate diplomacy can build. "Is this the place?" Jack whispered to his assistant, looking around with barely hidden dislike. Mr. Tanaka wanted something authentic, Mr. Miller. He said he was tired of Michelin star restaurants. Jack snorted. Authentic. What an overrated word. They sat at table 7, near the window that faced a narrow street where a street lamp blinked with laziness. Jack barely loosened the knot of his tie and looked at the menu with the same energy he would use to check a boring tax report. It was then that a figure approached with a pitcher of water. Jack looked up, and the world stopped. The pitcher trembled in the woman's hands. The water moved, about to spill. Her fingers turned white from the force with which she held the glass. "Sarah." The word came out like an involuntary shot. She froze. For an infinite second, her eyes stopped being those of a professional waitress and became 2 pits full of memory. 5 years. 5 years since the divorce that had ended in screams, very expensive lawyers, public shame, and a phrase that Jack still remembered with anger. "I prefer to die of hunger before accepting a penny from you." Sarah was thinner, paler, more tired. The dark circles under her eyes were like permanent shadows, and her brown hair, which she used to wear loose and shiny, was now tied back in a tight and practical ponytail. But she was still beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. "Good evening, sir. Can I take your order?" Her voice was flat, professional, empty. Jack let out a dry laugh without humor. His partners exchanged confused looks. Mr. Tanaka kept that polite smile that diplomats use when they detect tension but pretend not to see it. "Sarah, for God's sake, what are you doing here? You were the head nurse at the university hospital. You had a career." She swallowed. Her face remained firm, but her hand betrayed her. Her fingers showed marks of burns from hot water. Her nails were short and worn, and there was an almost invisible shake that Jack recognized as pure exhaustion. "Things change, Jack." The neutral tone annoyed him like a personal insult. And then came the poison that Jack had always known how to use with surgical precision. "I see your pride took you far, from head nurse to waitress. Congratulations." Sarah did not answer. She did not even blink. She simply wrote something in her notebook, turned around and walked away through the crowded tables. Jack stayed watching her back as she got lost in the golden darkness of the restaurant, and he felt something strange grow in his chest, a mix of rage and bitter satisfaction, as if the universe had finally given back to her what in his head she deserved for refusing to depend on him. The partners began to talk about numbers and strategies, but Jack barely listened. Every time Sarah came near his table, he threw a sharp comment. An irony here. A "thank you, ma'am," full of hate there. A humiliating question about how many tables she served per night to make ends meet. The partners stopped looking at her. Mr. Tanaka stopped smiling, clearly uncomfortable, but Sarah continued firm, with her face getting more empty, as if she were erasing her emotions one by one, until she brought the dessert. And Jack noticed something he could not ignore. Her hands were shaking. It was not a small shake. It was the shake of someone who is holding their whole body with the last string available. "Are you sick?" Jack asked, more out of curiosity than pity. Sarah hesitated. For a second, her eyes seemed to want to say everything, but she swallowed the words as if they were glass. "Just tired, double shift." Jack smiled from the side with casual cruelty. Double shift. Here? She looked down, as if she could not let herself fail even a millimeter. The dinner ended with forced politeness. Mr. Tanaka thanked them with brief bows. The partners put away their bags, and Jack signed the bill with a fast scribble that was worth more tip than Sarah's weekly salary. But when everyone got up to leave, Jack felt an urge he could not name. A poisonous curiosity, a need to understand why seeing her like this bothered him so much. He followed her. He went through the narrow dining room, moving around tables and chairs, until he reached the hallway that led to the kitchen. The noise of the room faded away, replaced by the sound of pots hitting, water running, and fans roaring. He reached her near the sink, where she was putting her notebook in the pocket of her apron with mechanical movements. "Sarah." She turned slowly, like someone who already knows this is going to hurt. "We have nothing to talk about, Jack. Why did you leave the hospital? You loved that job." Sarah let out a short, bitter laugh, like a broken reflection. "I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I needed to." "Needed?" Jack frowned. "Money? For what? Debts? Gambling? Drugs?" She looked at him with a silent fury that made Jack swallow without wanting to. "For medical treatment." The words cut the air like knives. Jack felt his stomach tighten. "Are you sick?" Sarah did not answer right away. She put her hand in the pocket of her apron slowly, as if she were taking out something she hated to carry. Her fingers shook. "Not me, Jack." He took a step closer, his heart racing for no clear reason. "Then who?" Sarah took a wrinkled photograph from her pocket, folded so many times that the edges were worn. She held it out as if it weighed tons. Jack took it, and his world fell apart. A 4-year-old girl, fair skin, soft cheeks, light brown hair in 2 small pigtails, a smile identical to Sarah's. But the eyes were Jack's. They were not similar. They were his. That same hazel color with golden sparks. That same slightly almond shape. That same shine he saw in the mirror for 5 decades. Jack felt the air disappear. Who is she?" Sarah answered with a calm that only someone who has cried until they have no tears left can have. "Lily, our daughter." Jack's body did not react. He stayed still, as if someone had nailed his feet to the greasy tile floor. "Our daughter?" Sarah let out a sigh, as if she were tired of existing. "I found out I was pregnant a week after signing the divorce. 1 week. You had just married that model, that girl who was in the magazines, and I decided not to tell you." Jack raised his voice in an instinctive explosion, more shock than pain. "How dare you hide this from me?" Sarah looked up, and finally her tone broke. The mask fell. "You left me, Jack. You said I was boring, that your life with me was small, that you wanted excitement. 2 weeks later you were kissing another woman in public. I thought you didn't want responsibilities, and I didn't want my daughter to be an uncomfortable reminder in your new life." Jack opened his mouth but found no words. He looked at the photo, at the girl smiling with a stuffed dinosaur in her arms, and felt an absurd pain rise from his chest to his throat. And the treatment? Sarah took a deep breath, as if she were going to fall apart. Leukemia. The word fell like a shot in the night. Jack blinked, as if he had not understood. What? Acute lymphoblastic leukemia. They diagnosed her 6 months ago. She is in chemotherapy at New York General Hospital. I sold everything. The house, the car, the jewelry, everything. Health insurance does not cover the imported medicines. It does not cover part of the specialized tests. It does not cover the private wing when she gets sick and any infection can kill her. Sarah pointed with a small gesture toward the dining room, as if that were a sentence. That is why I am here. And at another job too. 16 hours a day. I sleep with one eye open. I work with fear. I smile with fear. Because if I stop, I lose her. Sarah's eyes finally filled up. Thick tears fell as if they no longer had permission to stay inside. Jack stayed with the photo in his hand, shaking now himself, and the guilt came like a blow. The guilt came like an avalanche. Jack left the restaurant without saying anything else. He walked through the streets of New York like a sleepwalker, with the wrinkled photo in the pocket of his very expensive suit. The night was warm, but he felt cold. He reached his 5-star hotel, went up to his suite, and stayed standing in front of the window facing the city lights. The city sparkled like a perfect postcard. Everything was beautiful, orderly, expensive, and he felt empty. He took the photo from his pocket and looked at it under the light of the design lamp. Lily, his daughter, a girl who carried his blood, his look, his existence, and he knew nothing about her. He called his lawyer at 2 in the morning. "I need information on Sarah Evans. Everything. Where she lives, where she works, the medical situation of," he swallowed, "of her daughter. My daughter." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Your daughter, Mr. Miller." "Yes, my daughter. Move fast." He hung up before the lawyer could ask more questions. He did not sleep that night, nor the next. The meetings became blurry. The numbers stopped making sense. Mr. Tanaka signed the contract, but Jack barely noticed it. The lawyer's report came 3 days later. Jack read it in his private office, his hands shaking so much that the letters seemed to move. Sarah Evans, 47 years old, former head nurse at New York General Hospital, left voluntarily 7 months ago, currently employed at Villarreal, waitress night shift, and at Sunrise Cafe, waitress morning shift. Monthly income, $1,400. Estimated monthly medical expenses, $4,200. Lily Evans, 4 years old, oncology patient, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, treatment in progress, outlook, guarded, urgent need for a bone marrow, transplant, waiting list, uncertain. Jack closed the report and threw it on the desk. $4,200 a month. She earned less than $1,500. How the hell was she surviving? He picked up the phone again. "I want to speak with the head of oncology at New York General Hospital. Now." Dr. Reed was a man of 60 years with deep wrinkles and a tired look. He received Jack in his office as if he already knew that this conversation was going to be difficult. "Mr. Miller, I understand you want information about Lily Evans." "I am her father," Jack said, and the words sounded strange in his mouth. "I need to know everything." Dr. Reed nodded slowly and opened a thick file full of medical papers, charts, and x-rays. "Lily has high-risk acute lymphoblastic leukemia. She responded partially to the first line of chemotherapy, but she has relapsed. She needs a bone marrow transplant urgently. Without a matching donor, her chances of survival at 5 years are less than 15%. Jack felt the floor open under his feet. 15%. With a transplant, the chances go up to 70, even 80%. But finding a matching donor is not easy. Her siblings, if she had them, would be the best option. Parents have a 25% chance of a match. The National Registry has unpredictable waiting times. Jack leaned forward, his hands tight. "I want to take the tests. Now." Dr. Reed looked at him with something like respect. "We can do them today. But you should know that this is not just a matter of money, Mr. Miller. It is a matter of time and genetic match. We cannot guarantee anything. Do them." 3 hours later, Jack was in a lab while a nurse took his blood. He watched the tube fill with dark red and thought of Lily, of Sarah, of 5 years of absence. He left the hospital when the sun was already setting. The streets of New York smelled of hot dogs and fresh bread. Life went on, indifferent to his personal crisis. But Jack was no longer the same man who had entered Villarreal a week ago. Something inside him had broken, and for the first time in decades, he did not know how to fix it. The results took 48 hours that felt like years. Jack cancelled meetings, ignored calls from his current wife, a 26-year-old model named Sophia, who at that moment seemed as fake as a TV character, and spent the nights awake, looking at the photo of Lily. When Dr. Reed called him, Jack almost dropped the phone. "Mr. Miller, I have the results." Jack closed his eyes. "Tell me." "It is a match. It is not a perfect match, but it is enough. We can move forward with the transplant." Jack let out the air he did not know he was holding. "When?" "We need to prepare Lily first. More chemotherapy to reduce the tumor. Then the transplant. We are talking about 6 to 8 weeks. Do it. And I want her to have everything she needs. Medicines, equipment, the best specialists. I don't care about the cost." Mr. Miller, the cost of the full treatment can be more than— I don't care. Jack cut him off with a strength that surprised even the doctor. Save my daughter. There was a pause. I will talk to the mother. She has legal custody. Jack hung up and sat on the edge of the hotel bed, his hands shaking. He was going to see Sarah. He was going to tell her the truth. He was going to face her. And this time, he was not going to run away. Jack went back to Villarreal that night. He arrived just before closing, when the tables were already empty and the chairs were upside down on them. Sarah was cleaning the floor with mechanical movements, her hair loose for the first time, falling over her shoulders like a brown curtain. She looked up and froze. "What are you doing here?" Jack took an envelope from his jacket and placed it on one of the tables. Paternity documents, legal recognition, and the match results for the transplant. Sarah dropped the mop. The handle hit the floor with a dry sound that echoed in the empty restaurant. "What? I am a match. I can donate bone marrow for Lily." Sarah's eyes filled with tears instantly. She put her hands to her mouth, shaking from head to toe. "No, you can't. Why?" Jack took a step toward her, with a vulnerability he had never shown. "Because she is my daughter, and because I spent 5 years being a selfish idiot while you fought alone. I cannot change the past, Sarah, but I can be here now." Sarah let herself fall into a chair, crying without control. Jack knelt in front of her, unsure, clumsy, but present. "There is one condition," he said with a firm but soft voice. She raised her face, scared. "What? You never work here again? Nor at the cafe? Never again? You go back to the hospital as a nurse, or you don't work at all, you rest, you live, because our daughter is going to have 2 parents, and I will not let you destroy yourself trying to make up for my absence." Sarah looked at him as if she were seeing a stranger. "Why now?" "After everything you did, after how you treated me." Jack closed his eyes, and every word he said was a blade. "Because you spent 5 years fighting alone, and I was spending money on trifles, on parties, on women, on ego. I was a blind, arrogant man. You are the strongest person I know, Sarah, and I am ashamed it took me so long to see it." Sarah squeezed his hand hard, crying as if she finally had permission to break down. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I am not asking for your forgiveness," Jack said with brutal honesty. "I am asking you to let me be her father." She nodded, unable to speak. And in that empty restaurant, under yellowish lights that blinked, 2 broken people began to build something new on the ruins of what they had been. The first time Jack saw Lily in person was a Tuesday afternoon. The university hospital smelled of disinfectant and fragile hope. The hallways were long and white, with children's drawings on the walls, trying to make happy what could not be happy. Sarah guided him to room 304. She stopped in front of the door and looked at him with a warning. "Don't scare her. Don't tell her who you are yet. Just be kind." Jack nodded, his heart beating so hard he thought it would come out of his chest. They went in. Lily was sitting on the bed, bald from the chemotherapy, with a wool hat with bunny ears that was too big for her. Her skin was pale like porcelain, dark circles too deep for a 4-year-old girl, and an IV connected to her small arm. But she was drawing in a notebook with colored crayons, focused as if she were creating the most important work in the world. When she saw Jack, she raised her head and smiled, and Jack felt like he was dying. "Mommy, is he the prince?" Jack blinked, confused. Sarah blushed slightly. "Lily, this is a friend." Lily tilted her head, watching Jack with those hazel eyes that were exactly like his. "You have the face of someone who cries in secret," the girl said with absolute seriousness. Jack let out a laugh that sounded more like a sob. He knelt by the bed, unsure of what to do with his hands. "Hi, Lily, my name is Jack." "Like Jack and the Beanstalk?" "Yes, like Jack and the Beanstalk." Lily showed him her drawing, a green dinosaur with wings and a crown. "It's a real T-Rex. T-Rexes didn't have wings, but this one does because it's magic." Jack looked at the drawing as if it were a Picasso. "It's beautiful. Do you want to draw it with me?" Jack looked at Sarah, who nodded with silent tears falling down her cheeks. "I would love to." They spent 2 hours drawing magic dinosaurs. Lily told him about the doctors who were good and the ones who poked a lot, about how sometimes she threw up and could not eat ice cream, about how she missed having hair, about how her mum was the bravest person in the universe. When Jack left the room, he had to lean against the hallway wall because his legs would not hold him. Sarah came closer. She's incredible, right? Jack nodded, unable to speak. I want to be here every day, he finally said. Every day until she is okay. Sarah looked at him with something like respect. Then you will have to really know her. You will have to tell her who you are. Jack closed his eyes. I am afraid. Me too, Sarah admitted. But she deserves the truth. They told Lily a week later, in the same hospital, with Dr. Reed present as an emotional helper. Jack was sitting in a chair by the bed, his hands sweating and his heart in his throat. Sarah was on the other side holding Lily's hand. Honey, Sarah began with a soft voice, remember when you asked why you didn't have a daddy? Lily nodded, looking between them with curiosity. You said he was far away. Yes, but he is not far away anymore. He is here. Lily looked at Jack with eyes wide open. Are you my daddy? Jack felt the world stop. He nodded, his throat tight. Yes. Lily watched him in silence for what seemed like forever. Then she said, with that clear logic of children, why didn't you come before? Jack swallowed. He was not going to lie to her. Because I didn't know you existed, and when I found out, I was a coward. But now I am here, and I am going to stay. Forever? Forever. Lily reached out her hand, small and cold, and Jack took it. It was so fragile he was afraid to break it. Are you going to help me get better? I am going to do everything possible. The doctors say I can give you something you need. It's called bone marrow. It is something inside my bones that can help your body fight the sickness. Lily processed this with seriousness. Will it hurt you? A little, but I don't care. Lily smiled, and it was like seeing the sun come out after a storm. You are a brave daddy. Jack closed his eyes and let the tears fall freely for the first time in years. The following weeks were a whirlwind of mixed emotions. Lily entered an intense chemotherapy plan to prepare her body for the transplant. The treatment was brutal, destroying her immune system completely, to make room for the new cells that would come from Jack. It was like tearing down a house to build a new one, with the hope that the foundation would hold. Jack went through detailed medical exams, blood tests every 2 days, X-rays, heart tests, meetings with blood doctors, immune doctors, sleep doctors. They explained the procedure a dozen times. They would take stem cells from his bone marrow by poking the top of his hip bone. It would be painful. It would need general anesthesia. There would be a risk of problems, though small. I don't care about the risk, Jack interrupted during the 4th explanation. Just tell me when. Dr. Reed looked at him with quiet respect. In 3 weeks. We need to make Lily's condition better first. Sarah formally quit her jobs at the Villa Real restaurant and at the Sunrise Cafe. It cost her every word of those resignation letters, as if she were cutting ropes that kept her tied to her identity. She had been an independent woman all her life. Accepting help felt like admitting defeat. But when she saw Lily throw up for the 5th time in a morning, her small body shaking and her lips purple from the effort, she understood that pride was a luxury she could not afford. Jack rented an apartment near the hospital. It was not the kind of place he usually lived in. 2 small rooms with faded beige walls, a kitchen with old appliances, a narrow balcony facing a street where trash trucks passed loudly at 6 in the morning. But it had something that none of his luxury penthouses ever had. It was an 8-minute walk from his daughter. The first night he slept there, on a firm mattress that creaked with every move, Jack stared at the cracked ceiling and thought about all the nights he had slept on 1,000 thread-count sheets without feeling anything. Here, in this modest apartment, with the noise of the neighbors coming through the thin walls, he felt more alive than ever. Sophia, his current wife, the 26-year-old, model with millions of Instagram followers, sent him an avalanche of angry messages. First confused, "Where are you? Why aren't you answering?" Then annoyed, "We have social plans." Finally crazy, "This is embarrassing. Everyone is asking about you." Jack answered her with an honesty that surprised even him. "I have a 4-year-old daughter with leukemia. I just found out she exists. She is going to need a bone marrow transplant, and I am a match. I will be in New York as long as necessary. You can stay in the house in LA or leave. You decide." Sophia's answer came 3 hours later, a photo of her with her bags packed and a 2-word message. How pathetic. The next morning, the story appeared in 3 gossip magazines. Billionaire Jack Miller dumped by model wife. She reveals he has a secret daughter from a past relationship. Jack read the headlines with the phone in one hand and a cold coffee in the other. He expected to feel rage, shame, the urge to control the damage to her. His name. He felt none of that. He only felt relief. He spent his days at the hospital in room 304, which had become his second home. He learned the routine. The doctors made rounds at 8 in the morning. The nurses changed the IVs at 10, 2, and 6. Lily had more energy in the afternoons between 3 and 5, before the tiredness hit her like a wave. Jack adapted to that schedule like a biological clock. He arrived at the hospital at 9, after the medical rounds, with a backpack full of things he had learned Lily needed. New crayons because the others wore out fast, notebooks with thick pages, picture books about dinosaurs and space, small bottles of apple juice, which was the only thing she could sometimes keep down. He read to her for hours, stories of princesses who did not need to be saved, of good dragons, of children who traveled to far planets. Lily snuggled against the pillows, her wool hat on, even when it was hot in the room, and listened with her eyes closed. "Daddy," she said one afternoon, interrupting the reading of a book about whales. "Do you also get sad sometimes?" Jack closed the book slowly. "Yes, little one. Sometimes." "Why?" He chose the words carefully. "Because I spent a lot of time doing things that didn't matter, and now I realize I lost time that won't come back." Lily looked at him with that shocking seriousness that sick children have, that early maturity that is born from pain. "But now you are here. Now I am here. Then you didn't lose all the time. You just started late." Jack felt something break in his chest. He took Lily's hand, so small it disappeared completely inside his. "You are very wise for a 4-year-old. "It's because I read a lot of books," she answered with absolute seriousness. "Books make you smart." Jack smiled, for the first time in weeks a real smile. Sarah came in and out of the room like a protective shadow. She brought homemade food that Lily barely tasted, clean clothes, soft words. She watched the interaction between Jack and Lily with a mix of emotions that was impossible to read. Relief, maybe. Sadness for the lost years. Fragile hope. One night, after Lily fell asleep, Jack and Sarah sat in the waiting room. It was past midnight. The hospital was in silence, only the constant hum of machines and the occasional pass of nurses with shoes that squeaked on the floor. Sarah had brought coffee from a machine. It was horrible, bitter and watery at the same time, but it was hot. "Thank you," she said suddenly, looking at the plastic cup between her hands. Jack looked at her surprised. "For what?" "For being here. For not running away when we told you the truth. I honestly thought you would disappear, that you would find an excuse, that your lawyer would call me offering money so I wouldn't bother you." Jack felt the weight of those words like stones. "That would have been the Jack of a month ago," he admitted. "The Jack who entered Villarreal looking to shame you. That guy was a jerk. And now? Now, I don't know who I am, but I am trying to be someone better, someone Lily can respect when she grows up." Sarah took a sip of coffee and made a face because of how bad it tasted. "You are changing. I am trying." There was a comfortable silence between them. It was not the awkward silence of two strangers, nor the silence full of hate from their failed marriage. It was something new, something that looked dangerously like peace. "Do you regret it?" Sarah asked. Suddenly, everything. The marriage, the divorce, us. Jack thought about the question carefully. He could have lied. He could have said something nice and empty, but he owed her honesty. "I regret how it ended. The horrible things I said, not fighting for us when there was still time. But I don't regret meeting you, because without you, Lily would not exist. And she is," his voice broke, "she is the best thing that has happened to me, even if I only met her a month ago." Sarah blinked fast, pushing away tears. "I don't regret meeting you either. I only regret loving someone who didn't know how to love me back." "I did know," Jack said softly. "I just didn't know how. And when I learned, it was already too late." Sarah looked him in the eyes for the first time in years, without rage, without pain, only with a mature sadness. "Maybe in another life we would be better for each other. Maybe," Jack nodded. "But in this life, we can be good parents. That has to be enough." Sarah reached out. Her hand. Jack took it. It was not a romantic gesture. It was a pact, a truce, a silent agreement to leave the war behind and build something new over the ashes. It was 5 days before the transplant when Lily had the worst crisis so far. Jack was in the apartment, packing a bag with things for the hospital, more books, the dinosaur toy Lily had asked for, a soft blanket, when the phone rang. The caller ID showed University Hospital. He answered before the second ring. Yes? Mr. Miller. This is Dr. Mendez from the Pediatric Oncology Unit. You need to come to the hospital right now. Jack's stomach tightened. What happened? Lily has a very high fever and is having trouble breathing. We think it might be a lung infection. We are doing tests now. Jack did not remember how he got to the hospital. He only remembered running, his heart hitting his chest so hard he thought it was going to explode, dodging people in the streets of New York, ignoring traffic lights, tripping on stairs. When he reached the oncology unit, Sarah was already there, standing in front of Lily's room with her hands against the observation glass. Her face was destroyed, her eyes red and swollen. What happened? Jack gasped, out of breath. Pneumonia, Sarah said with a broken voice. Her immune system is so weak from the chemo that she can't fight the infection. They put her on oxygen. If she doesn't respond to the antibiotics in the next 24 hours, she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need. So Jack looked through the glass. Lily was on the bed with an oxygen mask covering half of her small face. Her eyes were closed, and her skin was so pale she looked see-through. The monitors beeped with mechanical urgency. 2 nurses moved around her with tense efficiency. We can't go in, Sarah whispered. Risk of infection. We can only watch. Jack felt a powerlessness so total that it hurt physically. All his fortune, all his contacts, all his power, and he could do nothing. He could not buy health. He could not bribe death. He could not negotiate with biology. He could only watch. They stayed there all night, both of them, standing in front of the glass, like useless guards. The nurses went in and out. The doctors checked monitors, adjusted medicines, talked in low voices with serious faces. At 3 a.m, Sarah slid down the wall until she was sitting on the floor, hugging her knees. I can't lose her, she whispered. I can't. She's the only thing I have. She's my reason for breathing. Jack sat next to her on the cold floor of the hallway. You are not going to lose her. She is strong. She is your daughter. What if it's not enough? Sarah looked at him with desperate eyes. What if all this is for nothing? What if after so much fighting, so much sacrifice? No, Jack interrupted firmly. Don't think like that. Lily is going to get out of this. She has to. How can you be so sure? Jack swallowed. Because I can't accept the other option. Because if something happens to her, His voice broke. I just found her. I can't lose her now. Sarah rested her head on Jack's shoulder, and he put his arm around her. It was not romance. It was survival. 2 shipwrecked people holding onto the same piece of wood in the middle of the ocean. Dawn came grey and cold. Lily's fever did not go down. The doctors increased the dose of antibiotics. They talked about putting her on a breathing machine if the breathing got worse. Words that sounded like sentences, sepsis, shock, organ failure. Jack called every contact he had in the medical world. Experts from Europe, doctors from Germany, specialists from France. He looked for opinions, second opinions, miracles, wrapped in medical talk. They all said the same: wait, trust the treatment, pray. Jack hated feeling powerless. 40 hours after the crisis, when Jack was napping, sitting in an uncomfortable hallway chair, a nurse came running out of Lily's room. Jack jumped up, his heart in his throat. What happened? The nurse smiled. The fever broke. 98 degrees, and she is breathing better. Sarah woke up startled. What? The antibiotics worked. She is responding. She is still fragile, but the worst has passed. Jack felt his legs fail. He leaned against the wall, closing his eyes, letting the relief wash over him like a warm wave. Sarah was crying and laughing at the same time, a strange and beautiful sound of pure release. 2 hours later, they let them into the room. Lily was awake, the oxygen mask still on, but her eyes were open and alert. When she saw Jack, she raised a weak hand in greeting. Hi, Daddy. Jack knelt by the bed and took that small hand in his. Hi, warrior. The day of the transplant dawned with a clear sky over New York, as if the universe had decided to give them a truce, a breath before the final battle. Jack woke up at 5 a.m. with his stomach in a knot. He had not slept well. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lily. In GU hospital bed, fragile like porcelain, fighting invisible enemies. He showered with cold water to wake up. He dressed in comfortable clothes, something impossible for him a month ago, and took a taxi to the hospital. Sarah was already there, sitting in the waiting room with 2 coffees. She passed one to Jack without saying anything. He accepted it without complaining, even though he knew it would taste horrible. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Terrified," Jack admitted. "And you?" "The same, but also hopeful. For the first time in months, I feel real hope." At 7 in the morning, they came to get Jack. They took him to a prep room where a nurse explained the procedure one more time. They would take stem cells from his bone marrow by poking the top of his hip bone. He would need general anesthesia. The procedure would last between 2 and 3 hours. Afterwards, you will feel pain in the area, like you were hit hard. It's normal. We will give you painkillers. "I don't care about the pain," Jack said for the 10th time. "Just do what you have to do." They prepared him. Hospital gown, IV, heart monitor. The sleep doctor came in with a professional smile. "Count backwards from 10, Mr. Miller. 10, 9, 8, and the world disappeared. When he woke up, the first thing he felt was pain, a dull and deep pain in his hip that spread through his whole back. He tried to move and groaned. "Take it easy," said a soft voice. It was the nurse. "Don't move yet. I will give you more medicine." "Lily?" Jack whispered with a dry mouth. The procedure was successful on both sides. "The cells are already being processed for the transfusion. She will go into the room in an hour." Jack closed his eyes, letting the relief wash over him even through the pain. Sarah came in shortly after. She sat next to his bed and took his hand. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving her this chance." Jack squeezed her fingers with the little strength he had. "She is my daughter. I would do anything." In an operating room at the other end of the hospital, Lily was being prepared to receive the stem cells. It was a simpler procedure than it sounded. Jack's cells, processed and cleaned, would be given through an IV, like a blood transfusion, but with the potential to save her life. The cells would travel through her blood until they found their way to the bone marrow, where, if everything went well, they would settle and begin to produce new and healthy blood. Cells? It was science and magic at the same time. Jack could not be present during the transfusion. He was still in recovery. But Sarah was. She stayed by Lily's side the whole time, holding her hand, singing soft songs to her, while the bag of stem cells slowly dripped into her daughter's veins. Lily was scared but brave. "Mommy, will this make me better?" "Yes, my love. Daddy's cells are going to help your body be strong again." "Will my hair grow?" Sarah smiled through tears. "Yes, you will grow. Beautiful and strong hair. And will I be able to go to the park?" "You will be able to go to the park, to the beach, wherever you want." Lily closed her eyes, trusting. "Then it's okay. I'm not afraid." When Jack could get up, with the help of a walker and making faces of pain with every step, he went straight to Lily's room. She was asleep, the IV finished, the transfusion complete. She looked the same, small, fragile, bald under the wool hat, but inside her, at a microscopic level, a quiet revolution was happening. Jack's cells were moving, finding their place, starting their work of rebuilding. Jack sat in a chair by the bed, ignoring the pain in his hip, and took Lily's hand. "Now we are a team, little one," he whispered. "My cells and yours. We are going to win this together." The days after the transplant were the longest and most terrifying of their lives. Lily was moved to a room of strict isolation. They could only see her through glass. Any visit needed a sterile gown, mask, gloves. Any bacteria could be deadly. Her immune system was at 0. Jack's cells had not yet started to produce defenses. It was like being hanging in a void, completely vulnerable. The first 3 days were stable. Lily slept a lot, ate little, complained of nausea. "Normal," said the doctors. "Expected." On the 4th day, her temperature started to rise, 100 degrees, then 102, then 104. The alarms went off, urgent blood tests, lab work, strong antibiotics. Through the IV, Jack and Sarah went back to their watch in front of the glass, prisoners of their own powerlessness. "Not again," Sarah whispered like a mantra. "Please, not again." Jack was stiff, with his fists tight, watching his daughter burn with fever on the other side of the glass. Dr. Reed came personally to talk to them. We think it's a bacterial infection. We are treating it aggressively, but I need you to know that the next 48 hours are critical. If she doesn't respond, So we'll respond, Jack interrupted with a certainty he didn't feel. She has to. Sarah said nothing. She only cried in silence with her forehead pressed against the glass. On the night of the 5th day, the fever reached 106. Lily was talking nonsense, calling for her mother, asking them to take away the needles, saying everything hurt. Sarah collapsed. She literally crumbled in the hallway, sobbing so hard the nurses came running. Jack picked her up, hugged her, held her while she fell apart. I can't take it anymore, Sarah groaned. I can't see her suffer anymore. I prefer it to be me. Take me, but not her, not my baby. Breathe, Jack said with a firm voice, even though inside he was as destroyed as she was. She needs us to be strong. We can't give up now. But when Sarah fell asleep out of pure exhaustion in the waiting room, Jack walked to the hospital chapel. It was small, with only 6 benches and a simple altar with a ceramic figure. He knelt. It had been 30 years since he prayed. Since he was a child and his grandmother took him to Mass on Sundays. He had stopped believing in God when he built his empire, when money became his only religion. But now, kneeling in quiet chapel, with his daughter dying at the other end of the building, he found words he didn't know he remembered. I don't know if you're there, he whispered. I don't know if you hear me, but if there is even a small chance that you do, please, save her. Take me if necessary. Take my life. Take everything I have, but let her live. Give her the chance to grow, to go to the park, to have hair, to be a vet. Please. He cried there, alone, in the darkness of the chapel, with his hands together and his heart broken. When he went back to the oncology unit, Dr. Reed was waiting for him. Jack felt the world stop. What happened? The doctor smiled. A small but real smile. The fever is going down, 102, and the latest tests show that the cells are starting to produce white blood cells. The graft is taking. Jack had to sit down before falling. She's not out of danger yet, but the worst has passed. The next few weeks will be for recovery. Slow, difficult, but possible. For the first time in days, Jack breathed completely. The following weeks were of gradual but constant improvement. The fever disappeared completely on the 6th day. The white blood cell count rose every morning like a small, repeated miracle. Jack's cells had found their home in Lily's bone marrow and were working without rest, rebuilding the girl's immune system cell by cell. The doctors spoke with careful hope. They used words like favorable outlook and excellent response to the graft. Every blood test brought better news. Every day without fever was a small victory. Lily came out of strict isolation after 2 long weeks. She still needed care. A mask when there were more than 2 people in the room, constant hand washing, avoiding crowds, no fresh flowers that could bring bacteria. But she could receive visitors without the damn glass in between. The first time Jack could hug her without barriers, without sterile gloves, without protective gowns, he cried like a child. He knelt by the bed and wrapped her in his arms with care, as if she were made of glass, breathing in the smell of her hair, or what was left of it, feeling the small weight of her body against his. "Daddy, you're squeezing me," Lily complained with a weak but real giggle. "I'm sorry." "I'm sorry," Jack said, loosening the hug but not letting go completely. "It's just that I missed you so much. So much. I missed you too. But you were there, on the other side of the glass. I saw you every day. It's not the same as being able to hug you." Lily thought about it seriously. "You're right, it's not the same." Then, with the quick change typical of children, she asked, "Did you bring me new dinosaurs?" Jack laughed, drying his eyes with the back of his hand. He took from his backpack 3 dinosaur figures he had bought in a toy store in downtown New York, a triceratops with golden horns, a velociraptor in an attack pose, and a brachiosaurus with a long and elegant neck. Lily's eyes lit up like lanterns. "They're perfect. This one," she pointed to the triceratops, "is going to be named Jack, like you." Jack felt something melt in his chest. "Really?" "Yes, because triceratops protect their family, and you protected me." Sarah, who was by the window organizing Lily's few things, turned quickly so they wouldn't see her cry. They spent the afternoon playing with dinosaurs, making up long stories of prehistoric adventures where the dinosaurs were friends, formed teams, and saved the world together. Lily narrated with energy, moving the figures with hands that shook less every day. And then Jack the Triceratops uses his horns to protect Lily the Velociraptor from the rocks, see? Because family protects each other always. Jack nodded solemnly, following the story as if it were the most important plot ever told. Sarah watched them from the door with a smile that hurt from being so big. It had been months since she saw Lily laugh like that. It had been months since she heard her voice with that energy. It had been months since she felt something like normalcy, like life as it should be. The blood tests continued to improve with a consistency that seemed too good to be true, but it was real. 2 weeks post-transplant, 40% recovery of white blood cells. 4 weeks, 80%. 6 weeks, 90%. 8 weeks, almost normal levels for a girl her age. Dr. Reed checked the results with a smile that grew wider every time. It is an extraordinary recovery. Honestly, Mr. Miller, Ms. Evans, it's one of the best responses to a transplant I've seen in my career. Lily's hair started to grow, first as an almost invisible fuzz, soft like chick feathers. Sarah discovered it one morning, running her fingers over Lily's head while she changed her pajamas. Look, my love, look. Lily ran to the bathroom mirror, still with steps a bit unsure, still getting strength back in her legs, and touched her head with wonder. Mommy, it's growing. Yes, honey, it will grow beautiful and strong. Weeks later, the fuzz turned into small brown curls that Sarah touched with infinite tenderness every night before sleep, as if she couldn't believe they were real. Look, Mommy, Lily said, pointing to her head in the mirror, turning to see herself from all angles. I look like a girl again. You always looked like a girl, my love, the most beautiful girl in the whole world. But now I look like a normal girl, like the other girls in the hospital who come to visit me. Sarah hugged her from behind, looking at their reflections in the mirror. Mother and daughter, survivors. You are not like the other girls. You are stronger, braver. You are my warrior. 10 weeks after the transplant, Dr. Reed called Jack and Sarah into his office. It was a Tuesday. Morning. The sun came through the windows, creating rectangles of golden light on the desk full of medical files. The doctor received them with a wide smile that made their hearts race right away. Sit down, please. Jack and Sarah sat side by side, their hands joined without thinking, ready for good or bad news, not knowing which they expected more. Dr. Reed opened a thick folder full of charts and numbers that didn't mean much to them, but were scientific poetry to him. I have excellent news. The latest bone marrow studies, the genetic tests, the tests for hidden disease, everything shows total remission. There are no cancer cells found at any level. The graft is 100% working. The DNA of Lily's blood cells is now completely male. From Jack. He paused to let that sink in. Lily is cured. Sarah covered her mouth with both hands, her eyes flooded instantly, crying with sobs that had been held for months, years maybe. Jack closed his eyes and let the tears fall freely. Without shame, without trying to hide them, he squeezed Sarah's hand so hard he probably hurt her, but she squeezed back with the same strength. Are you sure? Jack asked with a broken voice when he could talk. Completely sure? As sure as I can be with the medical tools we have. Obviously, we will need constant checkups, tests every 3 months the first year, then every 6 months for 5 years. But yes, Jack, Sarah, your daughter is cured. They left the office hugging, holding each other, because neither trusted their legs to work right, laughing and crying at the same time, drawing curious looks from the hospital staff who already knew them and who smiled seeing them. When they gave the news to Lily, she was drawing in her bed, focused on a drawing of a dinosaur family under a rainbow. She looked up when they came in. Why are you crying? Did something bad happen? Jack knelt by her bed, taking her small hands in his. No, little one. Something wonderful happened. The doctor says, you are cured. Completely cured. Lily tilted her head, processing the information. So, I'm not going to be sick anymore. No, my love, said Sarah, sitting on the other side of the bed. You're not going to be sick anymore. Can I go to the park? Jack smiled through tears. You can go to the park. And eat ice cream without throwing up? All the ice cream you want. And have a dog? Jack and Sarah traded looks. Neither of them had thought about that. A dog? Sarah repeated. Yes, I always wanted a dog. A big one I can hug and that sleeps in my bed and protects me from bad dreams. Jack felt his heart grow until it hurt. You know what? I think it's a perfect idea. A cured girl deserves a dog. Really? Lily's eyes lit up with a hope so pure it was almost painful to see. Really? Lily threw herself to hug Jack, then Sarah, then both at the same time in a knot of arms and tears and laughs. 2 weeks later, Lily was officially let go from the hospital. The day she left the hospital was sunny and warm, with the kind of perfect blue sky that only exists in New York in spring. Lily walked through the hospital hallway on her own legs, stronger now, with muscles that had grown back, carrying a new backpack full of dinosaurs and a helium balloon that said, "Congrats, champ," that the nurses had given her. The staff of the pediatric oncology unit, doctors, nurses, helpers, cleaning staff who had seen her grow during those hard months, formed a line in the hallway and clapped as she passed. Lily waved shyly, with blushing cheeks but a huge smile, stopping to hug her favorite nurses, the cleaning lady who always brought her stickers, Dr. Reed, who knelt to give her a big hug. "You have been the bravest patient I have ever known," he told her. "Now go and live a beautiful life." "I will," Lily promised seriously, "and I'm going to be a vet, like I told you. To help animals like you helped me." Jack carried her pink rolling suitcase. Sarah carried a bunch of flowers the nurses had given them and a bag full of drawings Lily had made during her stay. When they came out of the building and the sun touched Lily's skin for the first time in weeks, she stopped dead. She closed her eyes and raised her face to the sky, letting the light warm her cheeks. "The sun feels different," she said with a dreamy voice. "Different how?" asked Sarah, moved. Lily opened her eyes and smiled. "Warmer, more happy, as if it knew I'm better." Jack knelt by her on the sidewalk. "Ready for your new life, warrior?" Lily nodded with a smile so big it took up her whole face. "Ready, Daddy." 6 months later, on a golden afternoon of New York spring, Jack, Sarah, and Lily were in Central Park. The air smelled of grass and wet earth. The fountains sang their water music, and the pigeons walked with pride between the benches. Lily ran through the grass behind a 1-year-old golden retriever named Leo, a name she had chosen after seriously considering options like Dinosaur and Cookie, while the dog barked happily and chased her back in an infinite game. Her hair had grown to her shoulders, shiny brown with natural curls that bounced when she ran. Her cheeks had a healthy pink color. She had gained weight. She had endless energy. She laughed with a freedom and a joy that only healthy children who have looked at death and come back, can have. Jack and Sarah were sitting on a bench, watching her. They were no longer a couple. They probably would never be again. Too much pain. In the past. Too many wounds that had left permanent scars. Too many cruel words that could not be undone. But they had built something different, something maybe better. A genuine friendship based on mutual respect. A co-parenting agreement based on shared and unconditional love for their daughter. They sent messages about Lily's schedule, about her favorite meals, about her progress in the follow-up tests. They laughed together at the girl's ideas. They supported each other on hard days. Jack had sold his luxury penthouse in LA with views of the city. He had stepped down as CEO of his medical company, causing a small shock in the business world, and now only took part in the board meetings 3 times a year, leaving the daily work to younger and hungrier managers. He had bought a modest house in a quiet neighborhood in New York, 20 minutes by car from Sarah's apartment, to be near Lily. It was not a mansion. It had 3 rooms, a small garden with lemon trees, and a kitchen, where Jack had learned, and with help from YouTube and a lot of patience, to cook Lily's favorite meals. Sarah had gone back to work as a nurse at the hospital, but in a reduced 6-hour schedule instead of her old tiring shifts, to have quality time with her daughter. The hospital had received her with open arms. Several doctors had told her that her story with Lily had inspired the whole department. They split custody equally. Lily spent 3 days with Mommy, 3 days with Daddy, and Sundays. They spent together, the 3 of them, like a strange but working family, like today. "I never thanked you properly," Sarah said suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence while they watched Lily teach Leo to give a paw. Jack looked at her surprised, lowering the coffee he had bought from a street seller. "You don't need to thank me, she's my daughter. I did what any father would do." "No," Sarah shook her head. "Not any father. You know the stats as well as I do. Many men would have run. They would have sent money and disappeared. Not just for the transplant, Jack, for staying, for changing your whole life, for becoming the father she needed, she deserved, for learning to do braids on YouTube so you could style her hair, for reading the same dinosaur books 100 times without complaining, for being present. Jack watched Lily chasing Leo around a stone fountain, the sun making her brown hair shine. Do you know what the most ironic part of all this is? He said thoughtfully. I spent 52 years chasing what I thought was success, building a medical empire, saving millions that turned into billions, collecting properties, cars, expensive watches, beautiful women who didn't really love me, thinking that every extra zero in my bank account would make me happy, and it never was. Never. It was a hole I tried to fill with things that didn't matter. He paused, choosing the words carefully, as if he could finally say something he had been trying to understand for months. But this, he pointed to Lily, who was now lying on the grass, letting Leo lick her face while she laughed without control. Seeing her run without getting tired, hearing her laugh without pain, knowing she is alive and healthy because something inside me helped to save her. That is success, that has meaning, everything else was noise. Sarah looked at him with eyes bright with held tears. It took you a bit to learn it. It took too long, Jack admitted with brutal honesty. I wasted years. I hurt people. I hurt you. But at least I got there. At least it wasn't too late. Some men never get to understand it. Sarah reached out her hand and Jack took it. It was not a romantic gesture. It was a recognition, a silent forgiveness, an acceptance that both had done the best they could with what they knew at that moment. You are a good father, Jack. Truly. I'm trying. Every day. Lily ran toward them in that moment, out of breath and glowing, with Leo trotting happily behind. Daddy, Mommy, look what Leo learned. She stood in front of them with ceremonial seriousness, clearly proud. Leo sat at her side, tongue out, tail sweeping the ground. Leo, sit. The dog, who was already sitting, moved his tail with more excitement. See? Lily shouted happily. Jack and Sarah clapped as if they had just seen the most impressive act of dog training in history. Extraordinary, Jack said with faked seriousness. You should take him to a talent show. Lily thought about this. Seriously, maybe when he learns to roll over too. We're still working on that. She climbed onto the bench between her parents, settling in the tight space, and Leo lay at their feet with a happy sigh. I'm tired, Lily said, but the good kind of tired, like when you play a lot, not like when you're sick. It's the best kind of tired, Sarah agreed, putting an arm around her shoulders. Lily stayed in silence a moment, swinging her legs that now almost touched the ground. Can we have ice cream? Sarah looked at her watch. We just ate lunch an hour ago. But Mommy, Lily argued with that clear logic of children, Dr. Reed said I could eat all the ice cream I wanted. He said it. I was there. You were there too. Daddy too. We all heard. Jack laughed, that sound he had found again in the last months. She's right. The doctor said it. It's practically a medical order. Sarah rolled her eyes but smiled. You two agree just to ruin my parent rules. It's ice cream, not fried greens. Jack defended. Okay, ice cream for everyone, but only one cone, Lily. 2 scoops. Okay, 2 scoops. Of different flavors. Lily. Please, Mommy. Please, please, please. Sarah sighed with fake drama. Okay, 2 scoops of different flavors, but you have to eat all your dinner. Deal. They got up from the bench. Lily stood up and, in a gesture she had started to do recently, took Jack's hand with her right hand and Sarah's hand with her left. She started to swing between them as they walked, singing a song she had made up about a dinosaur that ate ice cream. I love you very much, she said suddenly, stopping her own song. Both of you, even when you make me eat broccoli. Jack squeezed her small hand, feeling something warm and deep grow in his chest, something he had found out was unconditional love, love without rules, pure love. And we love you, little one. More than anything in this world or any other world. More than dinosaurs. More than all the dinosaurs that ever lived. Wow, that's a lot. As they walked through the park, with the sun coming through the leaves creating patterns of light and shadow on the path, Leo trotting happily at their side, Jack thought about the Villarreal restaurant. He remembered that night that seemed to be from another life, entering full of pride with a suit that cost a fortune, surrounded by managers and important clients, feeling like he was the owner of the world. He remembered seeing Sarah with that stained apron, her hands marked by burns, serving tables. He remembered the cruelty of his words, the poisonous satisfaction he had felt seeing her fallen. He thought of all the money he had spent on empty things, on penthouses that were never homes, on cars that only served to impress strangers, on parties full of people who didn't really know him, on shallow relationships with women who loved his bank account more than him, on years chasing claps from people who didn't matter. And then he looked at Lily, with strawberry ice cream on her nose, laughing while Leo tried to lick her face, alive and glowing and perfect in her childlike way. He looked at Sarah, who was laughing too, more relaxed than he had seen her in years, with happy wrinkles around her eyes that weren't there before. And he looked at his own life now. A modest house, a smaller job, Sunday afternoons in the park eating ice cream, and he realized that now, with a tiny part of what he had before, he was infinitely richer, because he had found out something that no business book had taught him, that no millionaire teacher had explained, that no company success had given him. True success is not having everything. It's not the biggest bank account. It's not the most impressive title. It's not the most luxury house or the most expensive car. True success is not being late for the only thing that really matters. It's being there when they need you. It's hugging your daughter and feeling her heart beat against yours. It's knowing that something inside you saved a life. It's sleeping with a clear mind, knowing that today you were the best version of yourself. Jack squeezed Lily's hand a bit harder, feeling thankful for every second, for every extra day he had with her. And for the first time in his adult life, Jack Miller felt truly successful.